My mom cooks way better than yours. Some of us leaned back in our chairs while others sat up straight. There were 4 of us around the table, and it was loaded with fancy food. Usually we wouldn't have such an extravagant meal, but today we were dining with the in-laws, so it was a special occasion. Keith looked at me with a smug smile on his face, even as he ate. But this food was made by me, wasn't it? Your usual mistress's cooking is terrible, he remarked. My response spilled out, directed at Keith's comment. I glanced at my in-laws, trying to gauge their reactions. They looked puzzled, and the atmosphere in the room became tense. It felt like time stopped for a moment, and no one could move or speak, holding their forks in their hands. I realized there was no need to keep hiding. I didn't want to continue my relationship with Keith and his parents. I was the only one feeling this bitterness, but I was ready to fight back. I had planned to get back at Keith during today's gathering for a while now. That's why I had left our daughter with my parents. I didn't want her to witness this ugly side of me or be affected by it. My goal was to get revenge on Keith, and I was secretly pleased about it. My name is Rachel Davis. I'm 34 years old, and my daughter Nay just started elementary school. I'm your average housewife, living comfortably without any major troubles. Even though I have the means to live luxuriously, I'm not overly greedy. All I want is to be happy with my husband, Keith. On the surface, people might think we're a happy couple. But there's something that's been bothering me. Keith, who turned 39 this year, has been coming home late recently. It's been a norm for him to come home late since we got married. Keith works for a well-known company, and I know he's given important responsibilities. I assume there must be valid reasons for him not coming home early. I've always supported Keith and never accused him of anything, even though he deals with a lot of stress from work. He tries his best for our family, often planning trips for us on his days off. Despite the stress, we've never had arguments like other couples might. I've made up my mind to go somewhere tomorrow. I apologize for springing this on you suddenly. It's okay. I understand your situation with your husband. So what exactly do you need me to look into? Timothy asked as we sat on opposite couches, lost in thought. He spread some documents on the glass table in front of me. We have a plan to gather evidence through photos and our staff getting close to your husband, Timothy explained carefully, outlining the details of the plan. If that's the case, I'm on board with this option, I said, pointing to the plan written in the documents and nodding in agreement. At the moment, I was in the city, having visited a detective agency located in a back alley not far from downtown. Timothy Rogers, the detective assigned to my case, sat across from me, dressed in a black suit. Since yesterday, I couldn't shake off the suspicion that Keith might be cheating on me. Turning to a professional detective seemed like the best option. I didn't want to discuss my doubts about my husband with just anyone. But the urge to uncover the truth was stronger, so I explained the events leading up to this point. What does your husband do for work? Timothy inquired. He holds a managerial position in sales at a major corporation, I replied cautiously. He's like a department head. Understood. I won't ask for the company's name right now, Timothy assured me. I don't want to involve unnecessary people in this matter. That's appreciated, I responded. Typically, he works at the sales branch. If he works there, I'd like to know the company's name, Timothy requested. I'll tell you, but please promise not to tell anyone else, I said nervously, grabbing a pen and quickly jotting down the name on a notepad. This company is quite prominent, isn't it? Timothy remarked. Yes, that's why I was hesitant to mention it, I admitted. Please keep it confidential. Of course, we don't want to cause any harm to the company, Timothy assured me. This is strictly personal. 2 weeks later, I returned to the detective agency and met with Timothy again. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but your husband is cheating, he revealed. Oh really? I gasped in surprise, feeling a mix of emotions. It was like I had resigned myself to this possibility, yet the confirmation still hurt deeply. Despite the pain, I felt a sense of duty to accept the truth. Despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me, I managed to keep a composed facade. What's your next move? Do you want to continue the investigation further? Timothy asked. Yes, please. I want to dig deeper, I replied, even though my heart felt heavy. So, we'll need to get more involved. Are you sure about that? Timothy questioned. Yes, I am, I affirmed, though I felt like my heart was sinking into darkness. I wanted to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. At this point, the affair is confirmed, Timothy confirmed. And there were times when your husband stayed with the woman he was having the affair with, not just for work reasons. His words ignited anger within me, but I pushed it down, focusing on the task at hand. Do you want to see the photographic evidence now or later? Timothy asked. Show it to me, I requested, my voice trembling. Timothy handed me a photo from a brown envelope. As I looked at it, I saw Keith entering his mistress's house. The woman seemed to be around my age, but she appeared younger and more attractive. Keith looked happier with her than he did with me. My daughter Naomi's earlier observation wasn't a lie. She was only in first grade, and I didn't want to disrupt her life with a divorce. But I couldn't stay with a cheating husband either. If the affair affected Naomi negatively, it would be too late. Suppressing my pain, I made a decision. I need as much information as you can provide, I told Timothy. All right then, we'll proceed with the investigation for about 2 months. Is that okay with you? Timothy asked. Yes, I have enough money for it. Please, I need you to do this, I said firmly, meeting Timothy's gaze. But suddenly, a voice interrupted us. Hey, don't you go making decisions on your own. All you do is lie, the voice accused. No, it's the truth, I replied firmly, ready to face whatever came next. Now that I'm at Keith's parents' house without Naomi, I can fully respond to Keith's accusations. I haven't lied or deceived my parents-in-law, so why should I hide the truth? Besides, there's no benefit for me in doing so. A few days before coming here, I received a report from Timothy confirming that the investigation was completed. All the information from the detective was in the bag next to me. Keith can't deny it, and once the evidence is presented, his parents should understand. But I needed to be cautious. Knowing Keith's tendency to deceive, I decided to reveal the truth to his parents while observing the situation. You're crazy. My son would never cheat. You just keep lying, Keith's father exclaimed, his voice echoing inside the room. Just moments ago, we were having a pleasant conversation, but a minor disagreement between Keith and me escalated the situation, making the atmosphere tense. I had only mentioned that Keith hadn't been coming home for the past 6 months, but he immediately got defensive and accused me of lying. It was me who triggered this, but my resentment towards my husband ran deep. I had come to this gathering with feelings of revenge. According to my son, you can't even manage household chores properly. You're just at home and yet you don't do anything, Keith's mother chimed in, echoing her son's accusations. That's a misunderstanding, I replied firmly, pushing down my feelings and locking eyes with Keith's father, even though his expression was intimidating. Your son is lying. Misunderstanding? Are you suggesting my son is lying? Keith's father challenged. Yes, I continued speaking, determined to stand my ground. That's ridiculous. My son is a light. I've always provided him with a good education and quality meals. Moreover, I've taught him to be respectful and not to be a bother to others. Do you think someone like him would cheat? It's impossible. But Keith's father stubbornly refused to acknowledge what his son had done. Perhaps it was his lack of knowledge about the situation that made him unwilling to accept the truth. But Robert's demeanor grew increasingly tense. I was just about to present the evidence when Susan, who had always been kind to me, spoke up. I used to trust you, but after this incident, I just can't anymore, she said, her tone filled with disappointment. Susan had been kind to me since I arrived early at their home today. She had even recommended Keith to marry me. Susan and my mother were old friends, so her kindness was expected. However, now she looked at me with suspicion, as if I were a criminal. If things are really that bad, we might have to consider divorce, Susan suggested, almost sighing. I didn't want to bring up divorce. Our family runs a well-known company, and if people find out that someone like me is Keith's wife, it could tarnish our reputation. In about 10 years, Keith will become the CEO, and then we won't be able to ignore it anymore. Susan continued, her expression apologetic. And she can't even cook properly for me. That's not true, Keith interjected, defending his mother's accusation. Your cooking tastes bad. In the room where the 4 of us were, Keith arrogantly picked up his fork and began eating. His attitude irritated me even more. Actually, my mom's cooking is way better than yours, Keith laughed, trying to provoke me. But that was made by me though, isn't it? Your usual mistress whose cooking is awful, he added, stunning me with his remark. The atmosphere in the room became tense, and I felt the need to excuse myself. Both sets of parents-in-law looked shocked, their mouths hanging open. Keith also widened his eyes in realization, dropping the grilled fish from his fork. He had set down his fork onto the table. What do you mean? Susan questioned, her tone filled with concern. Just what I said, I replied smoothly. As I've been saying, the one lying is my husband. Hey, stop making stuff up. Keith slammed his fork on the table, yelling. It's not a lie. Plus, I cooked the grilled fish after I came here this morning, in place of your mother. You and your father wouldn't know since you arrived in the afternoon, he added defensively. As I explained, Keith grew even more irritated, his face turning bright red. Want to see the evidence? If you have it, show it, he challenged, standing up abruptly. All right, I'll show you then, I responded, taking a more serious tone. What? No, you must be lying. That's just nonsense, Keith protested, but I remained serious. Well, anyway, I haven't done anything wrong, Keith muttered quietly, sitting back down. You know what'll happen if you're lying, right? Robert shouted, his anger evident. First off, calm down. Does Rachel really have evidence? Susan interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. In that moment, Susan was the only one able to think rationally. I reached into my bag and took out an envelope containing photos and a letter-sized paper from Timothy, the detective. Placing them on the table, I could see my husband's face turn pale as he watched my move. No, it's not like that, Keith protested, desperate to avoid confronting the truth, repeatedly denying it. What is this? What does it mean? Robert demanded, visibly agitated. It's nothing, Keith covered his ears, refusing to face reality. These photos, who's this person? Don't tell me you've really been cheating, Robert questioned, disbelief evident in his voice. Yes, that's right. That's why I have these photos taken as evidence. This isn't fabricated. I've also consulted with an attorney, I explained calmly in response to Robert's remarks. If we decide to divorce, it'll be handled according to the law, I stated without hesitation. I harbored a deep-seated intention to make Keith pay for his actions. This could tarnish my company's reputation. Robert's voice grew weak, the earlier momentum now a distant memory. What's the truth? Susan asked, her tone filled with concern. Keith covered his face with both hands, unwilling to accept reality. However, he could no longer avoid the undeniable truth. Slowly, his distressed expression began to show, indicating his struggle to regain composure. All right, I'll talk, Keith finally said, slumping as if exhausted. I cheated, but it's not entirely my fault. From the beginning, Keith tried to justify himself. I originally had someone I loved. Yeah, I had never mentioned this before. Before I met you, before Mom introduced you to me. Why did you choose me then? I questioned, taken aback. Because it looked good socially, Keith spoke with difficulty, then glanced at his parents. Dad wanted me to get married soon, so I was set up with someone Mom recommended. If you loved someone, why didn't you tell me? Robert demanded, his anger evident. It was someone I met about 10 years ago. She worked at a nightlife spot. Given that my father runs a major company, I couldn't openly discuss it, Keith admitted, revealing a truth I had never known. I see, a nightlife spot. Well, in that case, I probably would have opposed the marriage, Robert acknowledged. So it's not entirely my fault. Actually, I wanted to marry her, Keith confessed, shocking me. We'd lived together for several years, even had a child, but all this time, Keith never truly loved me, I realized, feeling the weight of his words hit me hard. She told me it'd be okay if we got married this year, so I thought this was my chance, Keith explained further. What are you talking about? Chance for what? Susan asked, her confusion evident. It was my last shot at marrying her. Plus, I thought if I badmouthed Rachel, Dad and Mom would agree to our divorce. Keith admitted, his frustration evident. I'm sick of it all. The societal expectations and all that. I just want to live a simple life. I'd rather spend my life with that woman than with our family. A pang of sympathy washed over me as I realized Keith had been carrying the weight of stress for our family all these years. However, it dawned on me that our relationship was merely a facade for him. When I realized that our relationship lacked genuine love and was merely for appearances, it became increasingly painful. What are you going to do about your marriage? Susan asked, breaking the tense silence. I'm going to get a divorce, I replied firmly. Do you have any idea how much money I've spent on you? Robert's anger flared. Hey, stop it. Are you taking his side now? Susan interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. We've never heard his true feelings before. He's always followed our advice and did the right thing even back in his college days. What about my business? I won't accept it unless he marries someone suitable, Robert declared, his fury toward Keith showing no signs of abating. I'm sorry, Keith's voice quivered in pain. Just saying sorry won't cut it, Robert retorted sternly. But don't you think it's enough that he's finally been honest with us? Susan intervened, gently prodding Robert to calm down emotionally. I'm getting a divorce, so I'll be taking over my company. What is your answer? Robert asked Keith with an angry expression. I can't take it over anymore, Keith admitted. I see. Are you prepared to take full responsibility? Robert questioned, seeking confirmation. It might be tough, but I'll figure something out, Keith replied. Do as you please. I won't say a thing. From today, you're no longer part of this family. Remember that, Robert declared, leaving the dining table in disbelief. I'm truly sorry, Keith expressed deep regret to me, begging for forgiveness. But no matter the circumstances, I couldn't forgive Keith for upending my life. I was set on getting a divorce and planned to seek child support. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to suppress my feelings of resentment. I called the attorney I had spoken with earlier that day, and the divorce proceedings with Keith began the next day. A few months have passed since then, and although I can't live as comfortably as before, I believe my life has improved. I feel better about my current situation. Mom, I'm off. Be careful, honey, I called out as Naomi headed off to school. Now in the second grade, she was growing up fast. As a single mom, I had to start working again. But it was still better than living with Keith, who had no love for us. After ensuring Naomi was safely off to school, I headed to work. The company I work for is managed by my father-in-law. I reconciled with my parents-in-law, and they've been a great support, helping me in various ways. Through their assistance, I was able to join my current company. However, I didn't know what had become of Keith after the divorce. He went to the person he had an affair with and never returned home. Keith had always had a decent amount of money, so the child support was paid promptly. Later on, through grapevine, I heard of someone resembling Keith wandering the streets at night alone, looking haggard with a pained expression. I didn't dwell on it. Whatever happened to a man who lost everything didn't matter to me now. My duty was to work hard for Naomi, letting go of the past. I took the first step into a new life.